So, you started a private foundation, but now that the IRS has approved your nonprofit as a foundation, you're questioning whether or not that was actually the right idea. You're thinking maybe you should have chosen public charity. Well, surely you can get the IRS to change that designation, right? Well, the good news is, yes, you can change it. The bad news? Well, this is going to take a while. Let's dive into this all too common scenario and take a look around. Hi, I'm Greg McRae, founder and CEO of Foundation Group, and welcome back to our 501c3 University channel, where we endeavor to make nonprofit compliance understandable. We previewed this conversation in a video a few short weeks ago, and that is the idea of changing from one purpose category of 501c3 to another. We'll put a link in the description below. Toward the end of that video, we mentioned changing from one type of 501c3 into another, specifically changing from a public charity into a private foundation. And we said in that video that the easiest way is to simply stop filing Form 990N or EZ or Standard Form and begin filing Form 990PF. Once the IRS processes that 990PF, they're going to automatically switch your nonprofit's classification from public charity to private foundation. Easy peasy. Now, given how straightforward that process sounds, it stands to reason that changing from a private foundation to a public charity would just be the reverse of that, right? Stop filing Form 990PF and start filing one of those 990s appropriate for a public charity. Well, yeah, it's not quite that simple. Now, the reason changing from a public charity to a private foundation is fairly easy is that it is essentially a downgrade. And by that, I don't mean that a private foundation is in any way inferior, because it's not. But because it is more restricted as to donation deductibility and subject to tighter rules on self-dealing, it's like saying you're voluntarily agreeing to more scrutiny. So as a result, the IRS allows for an instant changeover. But let's look at what's implied when changing from a private foundation to a public charity. In making this request, the nonprofit is basically asking the IRS for an upgrade, higher donation deductibility, and less restriction on insiders, especially if those insiders want to get paid for working for the charity. As a result, the IRS is much less accommodating, and in fact, they're going to make it pretty rough. How rough? Well, how about a process that's going to take you 5 years to finish? Well, that got your attention, didn't it? 60 months? 60 months. It begins by making the initial request on IRS Form 8940, informing the IRS of your intent to change from an approved private foundation 501c3 to a public charity. But that's only the beginning. The filing of Form 8940 begins a 60-month countdown, during which time your nonprofit is expected not only to conduct itself as a public charity when it comes to actions and programs, but also with regard to income issues such as the public support test. And we're not going to go into detail here on the public support test in this video. We covered that extensively in a video several months ago, and we'll put a link into the description below, so check that out. Suffice it to say, a public charity is expected to have a fairly broad base of public support, at least 33%, unlike a private foundation that could be funded solely by, say, one person or one family. So what's significant about the 60 months? Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. It has everything to do with the public support test. The public support test is calculated based on a 5-year or 60-month average. The IRS never looks at 1 year in isolation to see if a public charity has sufficiently broad donor support. In fact, a public charity isn't required to calculate the public support test until year 6 of its existence, mainly because it doesn't have 5 years to average together until then. Here's a weird fact: the IRS always disregards a public charity's first year when looking at the public support test. Is this starting to make a little more sense now? If you have a private foundation and you want to switch to being a public charity, the IRS expects you to walk the talk for the next 5 years until you've accumulated 60 months worth of public support to calculate a public support test and prove that your nonprofit has indeed become a public charity. Not just in word, not just in deed, but in fact provable by attracting public donor support. The question we're often asked is, what kind of Form 990 do we file during that 60-month walkout period? It's a logical question, and the answer is Form 990PF. Keep in mind, you've only informed the IRS of your intent to convert. They have not granted public charity status yet. And until they do, your nonprofit is still a private foundation. So keep filing Form 990PF each year, remembering to check the box on page 1 that your nonprofit is terminating its private foundation status. At the end of the 60-month period, you'll have to file another Form 8940, just like you did before, this time bookending your walkout requesting final conversion of status. Unlike the prior few years, this time you'll include the appropriate Form 990 for public charities, along with the Schedule A where you've calculated the public support test, proving you indeed have arrived at your goal. Is there an alternative to the 5-year process? We get this question a lot when people find out how long it's going to take. The answer is yes, but it's not always the right choice. You could start a brand new 501c3 and request public charity status with the intent to dissolve the private foundation and roll its assets and activities into the new entity. But that's a complicated process too, and there's a lot of compliance filings required to wind down the foundation. Plus, you're going to have to disclose to the IRS and maybe the state that you're creating a successor organization. It might save 2 or 3 years, but it may be more headache than help. You're going to have to decide that. It'll be much more expensive, that's guaranteed. Plus, we're talking about assembling a new board of directors, new fundraising registration filings, etc. Think long and hard about what you really should do here before picking a direction. There are many reasons people change from one 501c3 classification to another. Changing from a private foundation to a public charity, well, that happens a lot more than you would imagine, and for a variety of reasons. If this is you, Foundation Group can help you get it done. We work with these scenarios all the time, so reach out if you need help. We're here to help you make it easier. Thanks for watching. Now go serve your community. Hey, do me a favor and don't navigate away just yet. We would really appreciate it if you would click the like button, as it really helps get our content recommended to more people. Subscribe if you haven't already, as we have great content coming your way on a regular basis. Finally, you can click the little bell icon to be notified of new content when we post it. To learn more about Foundation Group, you can always visit us on the web at www.501c3.org. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.